When we think of Sufism, our minds usually jump to incredible individual poets and mystics like Rumi. But what about the huge, organized spiritual movements? Well, today, we're diving into what's arguably the largest and most widespread Sufi order in the entire world, the Qadiriyyah. I mean, this is a truly global phenomenon with a presence almost everywhere, from West Africa all the way to China.
So that brings up the big question, right? How did a single scholar, living almost 1,000 years ago, become the inspiration for a spiritual movement on this kind of scale? The answer is, well, it's not what you'd expect, and it tells us a lot about what it takes to create a truly lasting legacy.
And here's the paradox that's really the key to the whole thing. The Qadiriyyah is so massive precisely because it doesn't have a single unified identity. Think about that. It's a massive order with no fixed structure, and that turns out to be its greatest strength. To really get how that works, we have to start with the man himself.
So our story really begins with the founder, Abd al-Qadir al-Jilani. If you want to understand this global order, you first have to understand this man, a figure who is just revered as one of the greatest saints in Islamic history.
Okay, so picture this. It's 1077. Al-Jilani is born in what's now Iran. By the time he's just 18, he leaves home and travels to Baghdad. Now, this was the intellectual heart of the Abbasid Caliphate, the place to be if you wanted to learn. But his first years there were unbelievably tough. We're talking about poverty so extreme that he was literally on the brink of starvation.
But here's something you might not know. In those early years, he wasn't known as a saint. His nickname was Al-Majnun, which means the madman. And he earned it because he would be overcome with these incredibly intense, overwhelming spiritual states, causing him to scream uncontrollably and just flee into the desert for long stretches of time.
So this brings us to this central tension in his identity. How could a guy nicknamed the Madman also go on to become one of the most respected scholars of his era? It just sounds like a complete contradiction.
And this really lays out the paradox. On one side, you have the Hanbali scholar. This is a master of the most traditional, scripturally focused school of Islamic law, a total pillar of what you might call Orthodox Islam. And on the other side, you've got this ecstatic mystic, consumed by inner spiritual struggle, the guy they called the Madman.
But here's the thing. What seems like a huge contradiction to us today wasn't one back then. This modern idea of a sharp conflict between orthodoxy and mysticism, it's just not historically accurate. For most of Islamic history, Sufism was a central part of the mainstream, so being a master of law and a deep mystic wasn't strange at all.
So, what was his secret sauce? What did he actually teach? Well, the key to his incredible influence was that he didn't offer some rigid, one-size-fits-all method. He offered a path, one that was tailored to each individual.
The absolute core of his teaching was the importance of having a spiritual guide, a sheikh. He believed that walking the path alone was incredibly dangerous. He famously said that if you don't have a master to guide you, then Satan becomes your master. For him, submitting to a true guide was everything.
And while that guidance was deeply personal, he did lay out some core ethical principles for everyone. And when you look at these 10 habits, a really deep theme just jumps out at you. It's this intense focus on truthfulness, on compassion, on refusing to judge others, and above all else, this profound sense of humility. The practice of seeing others as better than yourself, no matter who they are.
Okay, so we're starting to get the man and his core ideas. Now, let's circle back to that initial mystery. How did this very personal, guide-focused path explode into a global movement, an order that truly has no borders?
And the answer lies in its flexibility. It's almost that simple, because al-Jilani didn't create some strict, centralized system with a ton of rules. His teachings could adapt. There was no single, rigid way to be a Qadri. And that very openness allowed the order to take root and just flourish in all these vastly different cultures.
Take China, for example. In the 18th century, the Qadiriyyah didn't just show up, it integrated. Local leaders started blending its practices with elements of Neo-Confucianism and even Taoism, making it feel completely native to its new home.
All right, now let's jump halfway across the world to West Africa. And the expression you find there could not be more different. Here, the Qadiriyyah is known for this intense, loud group chanting, often with ecstatic drumming and music. It's this powerful communal experience that totally reflects local traditions.
And just for one more contrast, look at Mughal India.
In that context, the Qadiriyyah was often much more austere, more reserved, especially when you compare it to other local Sufi orders that were really big on music. So you've got the same order, but three completely different ways of life.
Now that obviously raises a huge question. If the practices are so different from place to place, what on earth holds this whole global order together? What makes a Qadri in Senegal and a Qadri in China part of the same thing?
The answer isn't a shared method. It's not a common ritual. The real unifying factor is something much deeper. It's a shared spiritual lineage. Think of it like a spiritual family tree. Every single Qadiri branch, it doesn't matter how different they are, traces its spiritual authority, its permission to teach, directly back to this one man, Abdul Qadir al-Jilani. He's the source. He's the central point that connects every single part of this incredibly diverse global network.
And his status within Sufism is it's almost unparalleled. This famous quote attributed to him really captures that perfectly. It's an incredibly bold claim about his supreme position in the spiritual hierarchy of saints. And it's this immense reverence for him that truly binds the entire order together.
And so that brings us right back to where we started, with a question. The story of the Qadiriyyah seems to suggest that a true, enduring legacy, it doesn't come from building a rigid organization with strict rules. Maybe, just maybe, it comes from something far more flexible and personal, a single, powerful idea embodied in one unforgettable person.